Welcome to another episode of Friends in Wonder, a place where we invite you to explore meaningful topics without judgment or limits. Brought to you by two lifelong friends sharing their insights while wondering, how can this help? I'm Joe Luther.
And I'm Vince Kern.
And we've got great topics lined up for you each week. So be sure to subscribe, like, and even share with your friends. Now, let's wander and wonder together. Hey, Vince, episode 2 of our generational series of 2. Pretty pumped up to get going on this topic.
Yeah, I've been waiting for it all week. We've got such good feedback from people out in the field that, after we finished with week 1, I just wanted to jump right back into week 2 and share some of our conclusions, some more insight. And that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about all the feedback we got too, because it was kind of, kind of pumped me up, because it seems like people found this topic very engaging. And I think what we should do is just get into these interviews again and then start discussing some of our conclusions and maybe ask some questions about, the content of what we're hearing.
Right. And before we do that, if you didn't hear the first episode, you'll want to go back and listen to it. We interviewed about 60 to 70 people across 21 tents at a U of M tailgating party, and people had a lot to say. And that's what we want to bring back in, talk about it, share it with you, and see what you think.
Yeah. And last week we concentrated on the hey boomer, or the, do you ever call somebody a boomer kind of topic. And that was a lot of fun. But this week we're going to get into something a little different. And it really kind of brings out a strong response from the people we talked to.
Yeah. Last week we heard a lot about respect for other generations, and we delved into whether people identified themselves as a particular generation. And we heard a lot of subtopics from them. So today's focus is going to be a little more directed on the work ethic that many people talked about. And I think we can jump right in there, eh?
Yeah, let's have a listen.
Big time.
What were the core values of your grandfather you're referring to?
Hard work, family, and being an honest, good person. That was everything.
So what do you think what is the biggest thing that has changed that?
I think the 80s we started to transition into the me generation, and I think we kind of got more selfish. We're in we're at like the height of our civilization, and I think we're starting to crest because we've accomplished so much so fast. And I think it's going the other way. You don't have to work as hard as you used to have everything anymore. We have everything you could ever want. I think it's making people kind of lazy.
And then boomers think the common criticism of the younger generation is they don't know how to work. What do you think of that?
That's true. I know a lot of people that are lazy. Me personally, I have my own business. So, I try not to be, but I know a lot of people that are.
What do you do?
I landscape.
Landscape.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about your generation?
I think we're in between. So I think there's a thought of we don't work as hard as generation the boomers, but we're in between because generation the millennials don't do shit. Yeah. Yes.
And then there's Generation Z, which are the college kids today.
Yes.
Because I hear millennials now crabbing about them.
Correct. Okay.
So
I don't know. We're kind of in a flux, aren't we? Our group.
No, we don't want to be millennials.
I know, but no, we're just like there's so much disrespect to younger group, which I totally agree with, because I know for a fact they don't want to work, and
they want to get paid, and
yeah.
they want to sit at home and work for 4 hours a week. And we actually still go in and work 40 hours.
I have the mentality of working 50, 60 hours a week, and it's easy for me to do that.
What generation do you identify as?
Gen X.
Gen X. Yep. Okay, and
1980.
1980. Yep. So what do you think some of the perceptions of your generation are? True, not true?
Perceptions were the hardest working people out there until the next generation came up, right?
What about boomers? Do you
Harder workers.
what are your perceptions of boomers, being so close to them, and what do you think the best and worst traits of boomers are?
The best trait is that they know how to work. They want to stay. They make their work middle class, more of a middle class to work, and they show that that's the only way it's going to be. But these new boomers or the new generations want everything handed to them and not do anything for themselves.
What do you think about millennials?
Not much.
Do you have an opinion?
They don't know how to show up for work, and they're spoiled, and they're entitled.
Okay.
They need to use dude wipes.
Why do you think they're like that?
Well, I'm going to have to blame it, I think, on the upbringing kind of thing. I think they're given everything the parents just think they want to give them everything possible, and then they end up growing up not thinking they have bills to pay and all that stuff because everything is just being done for them. So,
Holy mackerel, dude wipes.
Dude wipes.
Well,
That was pretty harsh, wasn't it?
Yeah, and what just really gets me is I was fascinated, and I know we both talked about this. I was just fascinated at the focus on work ethic. You get somebody older talking about somebody younger, and it seems like work ethic is the big issue.
Yeah, it was a big theme. And when we started sorting out the interviews, we noticed a definite upward trend of respect for work for older generations. And we noticed a definite downward generation trend of disrespect. And you and I got to talking in the green room about, is this something that's just happening now because of the fire hose of social media and our tendency to label things? Or has this really been going on for generations? I mean, did our parents, that whole business, right?
I would say not only generations, how about millennia? My guess is, Sir Arthur was probably questioning, his son's work ethic back in the medieval times, but I don't know.
Right.
Good
Probably
question.
just didn't hear about it as much.
Yeah, well, it wasn't on social media, that's for sure.
So we just wanted to jump in for a second and highlight some of the stuff that we were hearing and wondering if you're hearing the same thing. But let's jump right back into the clips. So what are some of the things you've heard about millennials?
Well, they're lazy. They don't like to work.
And do you believe that?
Yes, because I own multiple businesses, and it's for sure accurate. And I work with a lot of kids. I train kids, coach them, and for sure, work ethic is an issue for younger people.
So given your impressions about the other generations, do you think the future is in good hands?
No, not really. I think we're trying to change the country right now, and we're promoting people to be lazy and get handouts and stuff like that. And they don't, if they don't work for it, they don't feel the pride of accomplishing something and earning something. And I think then their kids see that too, and I think that's a bad example to set. I think kids should be shown that, hey, you're going to feel real good after you're done working hard today.
So what do you think is the biggest thing that we can do to make that happen?
Just teach kids that when they're done doing the work, even though they may have disliked cutting wood today, when they're done doing that, pat them on the back and encourage them and ask them how they feel about the day and do they feel good now? The next day, did you sleep better? Get a shower, eat. Do you feel better than you would have if you just sat around playing video games all day? Do you feel good about yourself? I think just complimenting the kids and showing them that you do feel better after you've worked hard.
What do you think is the most common misconception about Generation Z?
I would say, we get a pretty bad rap because I'll be honest, there is a lot of kids and stuff that don't have a work drive. They don't, they don't have that drive. All of us here today, we're all trades, went straight into the trades out of school, and I feel like there's a lot of kids that are doing that, and they don't get the rap that there is still hardworking kids out there.
So what do you consider some of the common misconceptions of millennials?
Of millennials? That we've never enjoyed life without cell phones, because we did. We played outside.
Or that we don't work hard. I think we work hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I think maybe the generation under us is maybe a little bit lazier, and we get some of the rep for that. And that's not.
You get lumped in with
Yeah, we
Gen
get
Z.
lumped in.
30-plusers we're roped in with like the mid-20s, which are kind of part of the 18-ish.
Yeah, we don't like those ones either. All right.
Yeah.
So what do you think of millennials?
Like my man here said, that there's people that want to work and there's people that want shit handed to them, and I see that.
Today's college kid, all the kids around here are Generation Z. What do you think of Generation Z?
Oh man, they're even worse than that, and my daughter's one of them.
Like this kind of, it's a technological world. You think that there's too much technology and not enough hard work?
I don't believe that at all. I just believe that
They feel they have entitlement to something that they have have not earned.
I'm saying the perception of people, what they're trying to put out there when it's really not there. That's the thing with me. Young kids these days, I mean, it's all about the Snapchat and all that shit, and they're trying to look a certain way when they really ain't that way, and that's just going to continue into their adulthood, and it's not a good thing. It doesn't equate to a solid future as an adult.
Do you think as a culture we'll ever be able to overcome that?
That's a good question. I hope so, but
I don't see that happening.
I don't. It's hard to see that. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's only going to get worse.
A lot to unpack there. We heard some definite downward generational dissing. And one of the things that I heard was a couple of different maybe types of things. We heard these tradespeople dissing their own generation. And then we heard, another guy talking about the social media fire hose that seems to be inspiring in his mind, the Generation Z, that everything was about the Snapchat.
Yeah, it was visceral. And, I think you asked the first guy in that clip whether the future is in good hands, and he doesn't think so. I mean, that's pretty strong stuff. And, one of the things I thought about when we were listening to this and reviewing it is, it gets back to what we talked about in episode 1. And that's this idea that, friends in wonder do not want to be a part of divisiveness or labels and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're not handing out dude wipes.
And I guess, but what I think is going to be a lot of fun to unpack here, maybe when we're done with all of these clips, is to ponder what's going on here with all of these visceral responses.
Absolutely. So we've got some more clips where there is a little bit more positivity, and it's interesting to juxtapose what we just heard with what we're about to hear. Do you want to get back in, or did you have more to add about that?
No, I think it's a good time because, it's a little bit of, a little dark, but it isn't all dark because, one of the questions we're going to ask, I think, at the end of this next clip, we'll give a little preview to what we're thinking. And that is, are older generations a little resistant to change? And I think that's a rhetorical question. And so these next clips kind of talk about more of the hope for the future and change for the better.
What is your understanding of what a millennial might be?
Kind of like, I don't even know how to describe millennials. Like, some of my cousins are millennials. I think they're cool. I think millennials are cool.
Both of my kids are millennials, and I think the millennials are a really cool generation. Not real crazy about Gen Z, but the millennials are cool,
Why? What is it about the millennials that makes you feel that way, other than the fact that your kids are millennials?
They just seem to be a really much. I don't think they get enough credit. I think they're a lot more aware of. I think they're a lot smarter and a lot more aware of what's going on.
What do you think about millennials' work ethic?
Well, I think millennials still have a work ethic. I think they do. I think it's the Gen X.
Expect to be able to work remotely. Both my daughter and her husband, they seem to thrive on working remotely, and my son too. But I think they do have expectations, of what do I want to say? they don't like the structure of the typical 9-to-5 job. I think they expect more flexibility. They expect it. I mean,
a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing to have flexibility, but like us or me, I would see it as a luxury. But our children, I think, expect that kind of flexibility.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? One of the common misconceptions boomers have of millennials is that millennials don't work hard. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm the opposite. I work for a company, family-owned company, started from the bottom, now working my way up through all of our execs. So,
All right, so there's a millennial talking about her work ethic, which is strong in her mind.
Oh,
and, yeah. And last but not least, we've got a guy named Charles who works for GM who actually supervises Gen Z. So he's not only got the experience of working with Gen Zs, but he's got hope and provide some solutions for the future. So let's listen to Charles.
I think Gen Z is interesting. I'm a supervisor and I got a few Gen Z employees. I think they're a little less inquisitive than previous generations. I think they grew up on the internet, and I don't think we fully understand what growing up on the internet is doing to everybody's brains. So I mean, there's a lot that's not their fault either. They got dealt a bad hand too, but they're definitely a generation that's far more online than any generation before it.
Interesting. So how do you see that playing out? Do you have hope for the future from a cultural perspective in that regard?
I mean, I think we'll see some of the negative effects and we'll cut back. I think you even see it now in Gen Z. I mean, Gen Z aren't parents yet for the most part, but I bet you they're going to raise their kids differently, just like millennials raise their kids differently, the previous generation, because, as more and more parents are online and know what they're doing, you're going to have less just giving free reign, I think. I think there's a lot less free reign we're giving kids as they grow up nowadays.
Now, there's a millennial who should give us all hope. And, in fact, this idea of giving us hope, I call bullshit on all of this broad brush labeling that millennials or any generation for that matter doesn't know how to work or doesn't have a strong work ethic. And, and the other thing is I think it was a baby boomer who we had interviewed who we just heard from, whose children are millennials. And he was talking about how his millennial children, quote unquote, expect to have flexibility in the workplace. And I say, absolutely. I think that's changed for the better. And maybe some of what we're hearing are people are just a little bit afraid of change and want things to be the way they know it.
Yeah. And change is going on all the time. And it is a question of whether we're able to adapt to change, to understand it, to make things better. And we got some feedback from someone who does leadership coaching for a living, who has been asked by executives about how to deal with some of these misconceptions and working with millennials in the workplace. And they're actually looking for ways to do it better. And he gave us some good research from the Pew Foundation and some other places. And he broke it down into what millennials want from a leader and what millennials want from a company. So let me just read those real quickly. What they want from a leader, according to this research, is support in navigating a career path. And certainly in these days, it's difficult to navigate a career path. It's not a one-job career anymore. They want to receive straight, meaningful feedback. They want mentoring and coaching. They want sponsorship for development programs. They're asking for help from people. They want to be comfortable with flexible schedules, as you just referenced the boomer. Now, what they want from a company is opportunity to develop individual skill sets, strong and consistently manifested core values, customizable options and benefits and compensation packages. God knows that's changing every week. Ability to blend work with their personal life, a visible career path with milestones. And so, this is as much to me about guiding future generations through change and being willing to accept the changes that they need from us as well.
Yeah, and that was timely feedback to get that feedback before this episode, because it really plays into this whole concept that we're trying to get at here. And that is being willing to change for the better. And what's wrong with any of those things that you just enumerated? Like, that's progress, in my opinion. We don't want to have unhappy people at work. We don't want to be doing things inefficiently. What the millennial movement and the younger generations are trying to bring into the workforce is a better sense of working.
And I got to say right off the bat that this whole experience has changed my way of thinking about this generational discussion. I went into it thinking people are more self-siloed into their age definitions, but I came away thinking people take this labeling far less serious than we might be, than I thought about it. And it really reinforced my view that humans are far more shaped by their upbringing and values and experiential learning, and whether they've had good mentors or not, by these labeling definitions that seem to be thrust upon us.
Yeah, and I've always been, I've always bristled whenever there's any kind of generalizing about a certain group of people. Of course, obviously, any kind of isms that are out there are not usually good. And I really believe my takeaway, like yours, that kind of changed my thinking about this, is that it's cute to try and put people into tight little packages. And maybe with the internet and the amplification of those labels, it seems more divisive. But my belief is, like what I said earlier about King Arthur or Sir Galahad or the Middle Ages, is that this has been going on for millennia. And that is that, the older generation is always going to be a little concerned whether, the new group has what it takes to keep things going. And we're no different. And certainly even we heard millennials questioning whether, the Gen Zs are able. And I just think that's kind of a common theme, but it seems like it just gets more amplified today.
Yeah, I don't think King Arthur was too worried about his kid doing TikTok videos. He was more worried about whether he was, going to grow up to be a good knight and could ride a horse and all those things. And I really do think that the problem lies within our culture, to the degree that we hold these things up as valuable the dance videos and all that. Yeah, they're cute, but when they become the way that you're going to make a living, it gets a little ridiculous. And we did hear people talking about that. You hear these professional athletes talking about, don't grow up thinking you're going to be a pro basketball player, because only 1 in 50,000 or however many million people become that. So we heard people talk about parenting and the core values that are more human centered. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, and what I'm getting at is that we need to focus more on the human aspect of it rather than, the cultural things that are happening.
Yeah. And I guess really to put a bow on it is, from our DNA, is it helpful? Are these labels helpful? And by and large, I don't think they are. I think it's important to know that certain generations, like boomers, have certain characteristics because of our experience in life, and certain generations that are younger might have certain experiences as well. But in terms of broad brushing and having this idea that some know how to work and some don't, I don't think that's very helpful. And quite frankly, when it comes to Gen Z, I think, what are we even deciding on yet? I think it's fine for them to be on TikTok and do what they want, as long as they know it's just fun and games right now. They're at that stage in their life when fun and games is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, we had MTV coming out, and I remember having a party for the first day of MTV. And that was a big thing to us because it was a cultural experience that our generation could identify with.
And
it
for
sounds
sure.
silly now. And it sounds like, the same kind of thing you just mentioned.
Yeah. And my parents used to tell me, you watch too much TV, your brain's going to turn to mush. Well, I think I'm doing just fine.
Well,
maybe I'm not doing fine.
Let's hope we are. And, one of the things that we really did get from our first episode was a lot of feedback. And this is all about wondering, obviously our Friends in Wonder title, as opposed to going with the expanding boomers, which we talked about in the first episode. But we also would really love to hear how you feel about things after hearing some of these comments or even experiences within your own life. So this is one where we want to keep the generational ball rolling, if you will. And I'm going to actively ask for some feedback at talk@friendsinwonder.com. Send us your thoughts. It can be anonymous. Just share with us what you thought about some of these conceptions, misconceptions, and thinking.
Yeah. And as we end it, I think it'll be fun to play a few last clips where it's a little bit more unifying and a little bit more playful than.
Yeah, we learned a few things while we were on this experience, and some of them were a little surprising. So let's wind up with some of our. I don't know if our Canadian friends are coming back or not, but we'll see.
Well, I'm 42. Actually 41 because we get 2 years back from COVID, so I'm actually 40.
You get 2 years back from COVID, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a fact, actually.
Okay.
Those years didn't count.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
You get to subtract 2 years off of your life.
Yes.
After COVID. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I get it.
Okay, can we all agree that the Beatles are the greatest band ever?
Greatest songwriters of all time.
Yes, I agree.
Can we all agree on one thing? Do you like the Beatles?
Oh, love the Beatles.
The Beatles.
Love them.
Love the Beatles.
Right now. That's it, exactly. What the world needs now is love.
Yeah, man, that's some coffee.
Yeah, Joe, this was such a fun episode or two to put together because it was a lot of material and I had a blast, and I hope you did too.
Oh, I really did. I can't wait to go back out and do it again. We just got to come up with the next topic. But maybe our listeners will suggest something.
Indeed. Thanks for listening. Again, like, subscribe, share, and join us next week for another episode of Friends in Wonder.
Actually, come in. We got a heater. Come in.
All right. Thank you.
You guys want breakfast burritos?
You guys want a burrito?